The clang of metal rang through the garage like a heartbeat. Sparks hissed, tools clattered, and the faint hum of an air compressor filled the air. The smell of oil, dust, and steel hung heavy, a perfume only mechanics understood. But beneath all that noise, something quieter moved, a choice that would change lives before the day was done. Malik's hands were blackened with grease, the creases of his palms buried under days of labor. He had been at Redline Auto Repairs for 6 months now, but it already felt like years. The nights ran into mornings, the mornings bled into more work. At 22, his body moved like an old man's, tired, sore, but determined. He had promised himself long ago that no one who walked through that door would ever leave helpless. Not if he could help it. He thought about his mother while he worked, the way her hands had trembled when she tried to fix a broken heater with a spoon in prayer. She had taught him that kindness wasn't weakness. It was survival. The metallic roll of tires broke his thoughts. A car, old, beige, trembling like its driver, pulled into the bay. The woman behind the wheel looked lost, small against the seat, her hands shaking as she gripped the wheel. Malik wiped his hands on a rag and approached. "Morning, ma'am," he said gently. "Something wrong?" Her eyes darted toward him, full of quiet worry. "It just stopped on me," she said, voice quivering. "I was on my way to the pharmacy. I don't know what happened." He could see it instantly, a loose fuel line, cracked over time. Nothing major, but enough to stop her cold. She looked like someone's grandmother, fragile and careful with her words. "Can you fix it?" she asked, hesitant. I don't get my pension until next week." Malik smiled faintly. "Let me take a look first." She stepped aside. He leaned under the hood, the engine's warmth brushing his face. Tools clicked, bolts turned, and within minutes he found the culprit. He patched the leak, replaced a worn part, and without thinking twice, poured the last of his own gas from a canister into her tank. When the engine roared to life, Mrs. Green's eyes widened like sunrise. Tears filled them faster than she could blink away. "Oh, thank you, young man. Please take this." She reached for her purse, offering a few crumpled bills, the last of what she had. Malik shook his head softly. "Keep it, ma'am. Just drive safe." She wanted to say more, but the lump in her throat stopped her. She nodded instead, whispering a prayer for him before driving off. What Malik didn't know was that someone had been watching. From the office window, Mr. Harlan saw everything, the free repair, the gas, the quiet smile. He was a man carved from years of loss and labor, his heart hardened into habit. Profit, schedule, order, that was how the world stayed together. To him, kindness was a luxury no business could afford. By noon, the rumor had spread through the workshop. Malik had fixed a car for free. The apprentices whispered, half admiring, half afraid. And then the sound came, heavy boots crossing the floor. "Malik!" The voice cut through the room like thunder. Tools stopped. Conversations died. The old man's frame filled the doorway, his jaw locked, his eyes burning. Malik straightened slowly, rag in hand. "Sir? What the hell was that this morning?" "She couldn't pay, sir. It was just a small repair." "Small repair?" Harlan's voice rose. "Gas isn't free. Parts aren't free. Electricity isn't free. You think we're running a charity?" Malik's throat tightened, but his tone stayed calm. "She needed help." The older man's face turned red, a vein pulsing at his temple. "You listen to me, boy. This is a business. Not a storybook." For a second, Malik thought of his father, a factory worker who died trying to keep a machine from crushing a coworker. The memory gave him courage. "Maybe it should be both," he said quietly. The shop fell silent. Even the air compressor seemed to hold its breath. Harlan's fist slammed the desk. "You're done here. Pack your things." No one spoke. The apprentices froze, guilt flashing across their faces. Malik didn't argue. He simply removed his gloves, placed them neatly on the bench, and walked past the older man. At the door stood Mrs. Green. She had come back, holding a small basket wrapped in cloth. Cookies still warm? Her lips trembled when she saw the scene. "Oh, dear God," she whispered. Malik met her eyes briefly, offered a faint smile, and walked out. Days blurred together after that. Malik searched everywhere for work, smaller shops, used car lots, even junkyards. No one would take him. Word travels fast in small towns, especially when it came from a man like Harlan. Unreliable, they said. Too soft for the trade. His savings vanished quickly. His sister, Lily, only 16, noticed the extra silence at dinner. "You okay?" she asked one night. "Just tired," he lied. But each morning, he sat a little longer at the window, staring at the world he couldn't seem to rejoin. The ache wasn't just for lost income, it was for the sense of purpose he'd found under the hood of every car. Across town, Redline Auto Repairs felt emptier too. Without Malik, the mornings started slower, the laughter gone. Customers noticed. A few didn't come back after being charged double for sloppy work. Harlan pretended not to care, but even he felt it, a strange quiet that settled into his bones. 3 days later, the bell above the garage door rang. When he looked up, he saw her, Mrs. Green, cane in hand, lavender cardigan buttoned to the neck. "Can I help you, ma'am?" Harlan asked stiffly. "You already have," she said, her voice trembling but clear. "You took away the kindest young man I've ever met." He frowned. "If you're here about that repair." "I am." She took a deep breath and told him everything. How Malik had fixed her car when she couldn't pay. How he'd smiled, as if kindness were its own reward. And then her voice broke as she added, "That same day, I was driving to the hospital to see my grandson. He was dying. If that boy hadn't helped me, I would have missed the chance to say goodbye." Her words hit him like a wrench to the chest. "He didn't fix a car," she said, tears streaking her wrinkled cheeks. "He gave me one last moment with someone I loved." The garage was silent. Even the ticking clock seemed ashamed of its noise. Harlan stood frozen, eyes lowered, the weight of her words pressing down like gravity. After she left, he sat alone for a long time. The desk felt colder beneath his hands. For the first time in years, he saw his reflection in the greasy window and barely recognized himself. He thought of his own son, gone too early in a car crash on a rain-slick road. The grief had turned him to stone. He'd built his business to stay busy, to drown the pain. But all he built was distance. That night, sleep wouldn't come. The ghost of his son's laughter haunted the dark. Malik's quiet smile replayed in his mind again and again, until something inside him cracked open, not from anger this time, but from regret. The next morning, Harlan did something no one expected. He closed the shop early. The next morning, Harlan did something no one expected. He closed the shop early. He drove through the narrow streets of the old neighborhood until he found the house, a sagging porch, peeling paint, a small patch of grass trying to survive the heat. When Malik opened the door, his face registered pure shock. "Mr. Harlan?" The older man removed his cap, eyes unsteady. "Can I come in?" Malik hesitated, then nodded. Inside, the home was simple. 2 chairs, a tiny table, the smell of reheated soup. Lily peeked from the hallway, curious but cautious. Harlan cleared his throat. "I owe you an apology, son." Malik blinked, unsure he'd heard right. "I was wrong," Harlan said quietly. "You weren't soft. You were exactly what this world needs more of. I forgot that once." He swallowed hard. "I forgot what it means to care." Malik looked down at his hands, the same ones that had built engines, the same ones that had failed to build a future. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I want to make it right," Harlan said. "If you'll come back, not as an employee, but as my assistant manager. Someone who can remind me that a business without a heart isn't worth a damn." For a long moment, Malik couldn't speak. His throat tightened, words caught between disbelief and relief. "You mean that?" "I do." Lily stepped closer, eyes bright. "He really means it, Malik. I can tell." The young man exhaled slowly, then nodded. All right, sir. I'll come back. When they shook hands, Harlan's grip lingered, firm but gentle, the way a father might hold on to a second chance. The next morning, the garage felt alive again. The air hummed with laughter and motion. Tools clanged, engines roared, and sunlight streamed through the dusty windows like forgiveness itself. When Malik walked in wearing his old work shirt, the apprentices broke into applause. Even the grizzled customers smiled. Mrs. Green was there too, standing quietly near the door with a basket of cookies, her eyes full of pride. Welcome back, young man, she said softly. Good to be back, ma'am. Harlan watched from across the room, arms crossed, but this time his expression wasn't hard. It was full. As the day wore on, Malik worked like he always did, careful, patient, thorough. But something was different now. Every turn of the wrench carried meaning. Every hum of the engine sounded like a heartbeat restored. At lunch, Harlan approached him with 2 cups of coffee. You ever think of owning your own shop someday? He asked. Always. Well, the older man said, handing him a mug. When that day comes, I'll be your first investor. Malik smiled, sunlight glinting off the grease on his cheek. Deal. For the first time in years, Harlan laughed, a deep, rough sound that startled everyone around them. And in that laughter, the garage found its rhythm again. Not the rhythm of machines or money, but of people, of hands willing to help, of hearts learning to heal. That night, when Malik closed the shop, he looked at the sunset reflected on the polished hood of a car and thought of everything that had led him here. A broken sedan, an old woman's tears, a man's regret, and a simple choice to do good when no one was watching. Sometimes, the smallest acts echo the loudest. And in that garage, kindness was no longer just an accident. It was the engine that kept everything running.